I'm here with Christina Cooley, Douglas Eager. The film is called Shootdown. We're here to learn more. Tell us about the film.
Well, Shootdown is the first feature-length film of the 1996 shootdown of two civilian planes by the Cuban government.
And tell us, for those that are not educated, including myself, about this incident and the entire debacle. Give us a little bit of a history lesson.
Sure,
some context.
Yes. In the mid-90s, there was a tremendous crisis in Cuba, and a lot of people were fleeing the island. And they were fleeing in any way that they could, crossing the 90 miles of the Florida Straits. And they would go in anything from inner tubes, styrofoam boxes. It was very incredible, and hundreds of thousands of people were doing this, and many, many were dying. And an organization in Miami was born, and they were a civilian group, a volunteer group, and their goal was to try to rescue some of these people, which they did. And two of the planes actually that were shot down were part of that rescue group.
And tell us about each of your roles in the film.
Well, I produced the film and really helped Christina to be able to tell the story she wanted to tell, and did a lot of research on the interviewees and tracking down who would be willing to be interviewed on the subject. And we tried to go to Cuba, and unfortunately couldn't do that, and not from the Cuban government but from our own. And so we had applied for a license and they turned us down. And conversely, several Cuban officials that we were trying to interview would say, "Oh yes, we'd love to be interviewed," and it would be 2 weeks, and then you call them back and they'd go, "Well, scheduling change will be another 2 weeks," and that lasted for a year. And so we had to really fight for a lot of the interviews, but we were fortunate. We've got some top people that were right there on the spot of the incident. So,
and especially, if I could also add that we were able to get the CBS archives, Fidel Castro talking about the incident, and this has never before been shown, so we're very pleased about that. And also the cockpit recordings from the Cessnas, from the MiGs, from ground control speaking to the MiGs, so that's also first time heard. And Raul Castro, who is now essentially taken power in Cuba because of Castro's failing health, and we have a tape of him where he is talking about the shootdown and its planning.
What's the take-home message for your audience? Each of you, on the directing side and the producing side, what's the take-home message?
The film is really relevant right now, given the state of current events. Castro's failing health, Raul Castro's now taken power, and I think we're going to see some change very soon, and it's important for this film serves as a window to the complexities of our relationship with Cuba, and hopefully we can take home some lessons from this incident.
And, I'd echo that and say that the ability to understand, the Cuban American community and the, passion that they have, that before we can ask for changes, the removal of the embargo or better relationships, it's almost like you have to have truth and then reconciliation. So there are some things that have to come out, be recognized as problematic in the relationship before it can move forward. And hopefully the film would be the beginning of a dialogue of that, so people could understand there have been some pretty awful incidents in our relationship history. And once that's been understood, I think you can move forward. And particularly as another generation like Christina comes forward, who has a little more distance, from having left the island. I think there's great hope that we could, better the relationship.
And knowing the truth first is probably a good first step.
Absolutely, absolutely.